This is Fred Richani of TSC News here to recap UFC 209, March 4th, 2017. Technically March 5th right here on the East Coast. Man, you know, there's an old saying that a pay-per-view, whether it be wrestling, boxing, mixed martial arts, could be great from the start all the way up near the finish. And if the main event sucks, that could put a damper on the whole entire show. To the point where the people that ordered the fight, like myself, or bought tickets like the people in the crowd at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, to the point where they walk away saying, man, that event sucked. Which is not a good feeling you want your customers to walk away with. You see, we had Wonderboy Thompson challenging Tyron Woodley yet again for the welterweight championship, a rematch of UFC 205 at MSG. This was set to be an exciting fight, a fight of the year candidate. And hey, it sucked, absolutely sucked that Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson got canceled again. Tony Ferguson, poor guy. How many consecutive fights has he won? Khabib Nurmagomedov, 24-0. That would have been a great fight for the interim lightweight championship. Khabib, of course, cut a lot of weight and got sick and was ruled out of the fight. But hey, if there's one fight we can count on, it's Woodley versus Thompson 2. They had a great fight that ended in a draw at MSG. So, of course, they're going to come back and have a great fight. Fight with more urgency. Woodley's going to use his wrestling more. We're going to have an all-out war, right? No. Instead, for the most part, they stared at each other. Woodley hit maybe one strike per round. We had Thompson controlling the cage. Tons of octagon control by him, but not landing anything at all for the most part. Woodley got a takedown, I think, in round number 3 or 4. And then round 5, there was 45 seconds left. Crowd was chanting, fight, 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 because the fight sucked so badly. Just a few weeks after maybe the worst title fight in history between Holly Holm and Jermaine Durandamy, we're followed up with another worst title fight of all-time contender with Tyron Woodley and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And at like the 30-second mark, Woodley's like, wait a minute, maybe I should fight. So Woodley beats on Thompson, nearly finishes him. Thompson survives, and because of those 30 seconds, we had Woodley winning via majority decision. Honest to God, I felt like neither of these guys should have won. The scores were 48-47 Woodley, 47-47, 48-47 Woodley. Frankly, I think it should have been a draw again. But neither guy deserved to win. So, look, Tyron Woodley, who's been complaining about so many things, I will say this. When it comes to the racial aspect of mixed martial arts and how he's been treated by certain fans, I'm totally with them there, okay? Racism certainly exists in this country. It certainly exists in a certain segment of sports fans. I get that. I am sympathetic to whatever he goes through on that end. But when it comes to him bitching and complaining about wanting George St. Pierre, about being the greatest welterweight of all time. Huh? Oh, sorry. I fell asleep. I was so tired from that fight. I don't ever want to see Tyron Woodley on a pay-per-view main event ever again. I don't want to see him on a pay-per-view ever again. Next month, we have Mighty Mouse Johnson defending his flyweight championship against Wilson Hayes. I would much rather have paid for that fight than this one right here. At least, you know, Mighty Mouse is going to do something crazy, some wacky move that's going to finish his opponent. Ugh, brutal. And what gets me about this fight is that, for the most part, this pay-per-view, going all the way down to the prelims on Fight Pass and FS1, were actually pretty damn great. But this fight was just brutal. Brutal. And in a year where the UFC desperately needs stars, In a year where UFC has to wait at least another few months for GSP and Bisping to fight, most likely in July. In a year where Conor McGregor may not even fight in the UFC, where Ronda Rousey's gone. This was not the fight the UFC needed right now. Frankly, this is not the fight mixed martial arts needed right now, because whether you like the UFC and Dana White or you don't, at the end of the day, the industry can only go as far as its standard bearer. And if its standard bearer has a roster full of Woodleys and Thompsons who are damn good fighters, but not all that exciting, and not guys that are going to resonate with the general public, then you better believe it's going to be a tough year for UFC investors, and a tough year when it comes to pay-per-view buys, and a tough year for ratings in turn, which would make it a tough year for fighters all around when it comes to trying to make money in this freaking sport that's already hard enough to make money as is. Man, oh man. So, moral of the story, don't watch this fight. It absolutely sucked. We kicked off the pay-per-view with a great fight between Alistair Overeem and Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt lost via knockout in round number 3. Got knocked out by a couple vicious knees from Overeem, 144 of round 3. That might be the end of Mark Hunt, given the fact that he was threatening legal action against the UFC. He was pissed off he lost to Brock Lesnar via decision at UFC 200 because Brock Lesnar got caught using steroids and all that jazz. And I don't blame him for being pissed, but man, it sure as hell made for an awkward situation to come back to the UFC. But he honored his contract, fought Overeem, got viciously knocked out. I'm shocked Overeem survived some of the onslaught from Mark Hunt, particularly these vicious elbows to the head. I'm kind of hoping Mark Hunt retires after this, but I could see him being let go of the UFC, and I could see him going to Japan and fighting a bunch of bums in Rising. And hey, if he fights a bunch of bums in Canada, or I'm sorry, Japan, or wherever he fights, that's fine by me as long as he's not taking brain damage. I don't know why I said Canada. I mean, he could technically go to Canada, but I think more likely he'd go to Japan. Oh, man. My brain's in Canada after that main event. Jeez. But it was a great fight. We had Cynthia Calvillo taking on Amanda Cooper. These two young guns in the strawweight division faced off on the pay-per-view portion of the show. And Calvillo got the win via rear naked choke submission, 3:19 of round 1. She trains with Uriah Faber, Cody Garbrandt, and it showed right here. Great performance by her. We had Dan Kelly, the man, 39-year-old Australian Dan Kelly, who's been under the radar in his MMA career, defeated Rashad Evans in an awesome fight via split decision. On one hand, it was really sad to see Rashad lose. I mean, really sad. I mean, this is a guy that knocked out Chuck Liddell, beaten Michael Bisping in the past, former champion. Pretty sad. On the other hand, we got to see the man, Dan Kelly, with his effed up knee, talking about how there's ligaments swimming around in the knee, still being able to fend off Rashad Evans and win via split decision. Well done by him. This is another good fight you should go out of your way to see. And then we had the co-main event, which was an awkward co-main event because it featured two guys that aren't really big stars, but still a fun fight. We had David Tamur defeat Lando Venata via unanimous decision, 30-27 across the board. You may remember Lando Venata nearly upsetting Tony Ferguson months back when he had to fill in a fight. I think he may have been replacing Habib, if I'm not mistaken. He replaced somebody that Tony Ferguson was going to fight. But Lando, fun fighter to watch. David Tamur, fun fighter to watch. And this was definitely a fun fight, unlike the main event. Ugh. We had the Fight Pass prelims. And the bantamweight division, Albert Morales defeated Andre Sukamtath, I hope I pronounced that correctly, via split decision. We had Tyson Pedro defeat Paul Craig via TKO, vicious elbows at 4:10 of round number 1. We had Mark Godbeer, who is the creator of God's Beer, in the heavyweight division defeat Daniel Spitz via unanimous decision, 30-27 across the board. We had a Yuri Alcantara defeat Luke Sanders via knee bar submission, 3:13 of round number 2. This was a crazy comeback. Just a lopsided fight. I don't remember the exact stats, but I believe this was ranked number 2 in the winner getting outnumbered in significant strikes by a significant margin. It was only behind Sonnen versus Silva 1. And if you remember that first Sun and Silva fight, you remember Anderson taking so many ridiculously significant strikes and still being able to finish and win that fight. Your Alcantara did the same thing here. Luke Sanders, a.k.a. Mr. Becky Lynch, had a massive brain fart in round number 1. He was laying it in on Alcantara, and then for whatever reason he threw an illegal knee. He said it was accidental. That was a brain fart. He had a point taken away from him, rightfully so, and then he got submitted with a knee bar in round number 2. This was a great come-from-behind victory. Speaking of come-from-behind victories, Darren Elkins was getting bloodied by Mirsad Bektik in round 1, round 2, round 3, but he came back, won via vicious knockout. I mean, he ended this dude with a vicious head kick to the point where this dude's head ended up underneath his crotch. I mean, it was ridiculous. I didn't know the guy could even bend that way. Great win for Darren Elkins, although his chest tattoo still is horrendous and gives kids nightmares. And then we had Mercine Tabura defeat Luis Enrique via TKO in round number 3. So overall, from near to the top to the bottom, this was a great show, but the main event marred this whole card. But I want to hear from you. Who do you think's next for Tyron Woodley? Hopefully it's Damian Maia, in my humble opinion, because, man, he got passed over for this crap. Ugh. But let me know what you guys think about this event. Let me know what you think about the state of MMA by leaving a comment below. Tweet us, Facebook us. Do what you got to do. If you enjoyed this update, please like, share, take care, and don't forget to subscribe.